Jeremy, Seth, before we started, you just had us take a breath together and set an intention. And you are just my person. This is our first time meeting and connecting outside of like a couple voice notes that we shared back and forth. And I just want to say, like, there's an energy that's felt between, like, obviously, we are energetic beings and we carry this energy with us that can be felt from a distance. And so I just want to express that, like, the energy that you put out and that I felt from the first moment I saw your Instagram page is extremely powerful. It's magnetic, it's beautiful, it's connected. And so I just thank you for being here and doing this with me. I'm super excited for this conversation.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate that. Yeah, energy is everything. So I'm glad, I'm in Miami Beach, you're in Hawaii. So I'm excited to eventually do one of these in person and have an excuse to come to Hawaii.
I love that. Yes. I love that you're already putting that out into the world. Definitely. And so the place that I really want to start, because your thing, your passion, your purpose, as far as I understand, is helping people become limitless, elevate their life, become more connected, become like more of who they are. And I really think that that's the reason why we're all here at the end of the day. Like, it's this remembering. And for a lot of us, for myself included, it's this peeling back these layers that we've like built up over our lifetime for safety, to protect ourselves from the world. And how can we become like more of who we really, really are inside? And through that, like with the tool of psilocybin. And this, for me personally, like I have such a deep connection to that world. And also it's been so, like, I've never met anybody that is putting this forth, like, as this being their thing. And so I would love to hear from you, like, what got you to that place? Because I really believe like we all have, there's like either a moment or like a buildup of moments where it's kind of like enough is enough. I've been living this way for a long time and it's time to make like a big shift or change. And so I would love to hear from you, like, maybe some of your backstory, maybe how like you started, connecting into psilocybin, like, and what that really looked like for you.
Yeah, for sure. So I think for most of my adult life, from like 18 to 26, 27, I was pretty limitless, like physically. I was very passionate about working out, and I was a personal trainer, and I was going down all the rabbit holes of nutrition, biohacking, learning from like Wim Hof, biohacking, ice bath, breath work, etc. And then when I was 27, I just kind of reached a point where I was like, I have so much more potential inside of me. And there's so much that I want to bring forth into the world, yet I'm overwhelmed. I don't really know what to do. I need clarity. So I just got this call, and it was ayahuasca. And it was like, yo, Jeremy, what's up? ¿Hablas español? And I was like, yeah. Like, let's go. Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Oh, ayahuasca's calling.
Oh my God. That was crazy. That was a synchronicity. Literally, you heard it. Ayahuasca was calling, and it was Mother Aya. And she's like, Jeremy, like, I'm ready for you to come to Peru and sit. I'm like, oh shit. So that was July 2018. And I had to answer the call.
Can you tell me what that looked like exactly? Like, was that just an internal intuitive sense? Like, what really was that call?
Yeah. So basically, I remember it very distinctly. I was visiting my parents in California, and I was actually scheduled to do a yoga teacher training in Costa Rica in like 3 or 4 weeks. And as I was just going for an evening walk, ayahuasca just kept like coming up in my mind. It was like, like I feel called to do this. I was listening to some podcasts from Aubrey Marcus, and it was just becoming more and more on my radar. And it was just a very clear download. Like, you need to cancel that yoga teacher training and go to Peru. And I was like, oh shit. All right. So I basically followed the call, and I found a reputable place in Peru that was super authentic. They'd been doing it for like 30 plus years. And basically, as soon as I was sitting with ayahuasca, like during that experience, we can go into details or not, doesn't make a difference to me. But basically, it became very clear through ayahuasca that these sacred medicines and psychedelics are the answer to creating generational health and healing in our society. And I just felt within myself so many of these suppressed feelings and emotions come to the surface. So many memories that I had forgotten about came back very vividly. And it wasn't just me. I saw the impact that it was having on the other 15 people or so that were in my group. And just seeing the amount of transformation that happened in like a few nights was just mind-boggling to me. And I knew that I just wanted to learn more about ayahuasca, different plant medicines, different psychedelics, because at the end of the day, all of these things for the most part are coming from nature. They're these powerful teachers that have been used for thousands of years to elevate our consciousness, to elevate our health and healing. And somehow, some way, like we vilified them in the West, right? And we've normalized things like antidepressants and Adderall and alcohol, when in reality, those are just things that are toxic, poisonous, and they just numb yourself. They don't actually allow you to address the root cause of some of these deeper things. So that's kind of what facilitated me to go down the rabbit hole of psilocybin. So I'll pause there and let you redirect us.
Yeah. I knew when I first was connected to you that there was something like deeper there. That the story that you just described, like I almost feel like you were telling my story. And I didn't go to Peru, but I did a weekend ceremony in Los Angeles, actually, a couple of years ago. And same thing. That was the like biggest shift for me in my life. And I took almost a whole year off of drinking alcohol. I have such a different relationship with it today. So everything you just shared is like, I feel that in such a deep way. And sometimes I think we need these sort of shake up moments for the clarity to arise, for like that remembering to take place. And exactly as you said, there are all these tools that we've normalized that make us so disconnected from our intuitive nature and the things that we like came here on this earth to do and to be. And it feels like there is this shift happening in society where more people are recognizing the benefits of plant medicine, and I feel it personally, and even in like my own sphere. And so I love that story. It's such a beautiful example of what's possible. And so I would love for you to continue and like take me down the road of like what happened after that ceremony. Like, did your whole life shift? Like, how did you start microdosing? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So I'll go into a little deeper detail, like the two main takeaways from those ayahuasca ceremonies, just so your listeners have more clarity, because I kept it kind of vague. So night one, first of all, let me just return back to my initial intention of why I did it, right? It was really to create clarity for myself. Yeah. That was my intention. Now, as I've continued to do work and study and do deeper work within myself to just remove certain blockages, I realized that intentions, we hear that word a lot in like the spiritual community, the psychedelic community, right? When it comes to setting intentions, it's all about gaining clarity with what you desire, but not being attached to the outcome. And that's the beauty of really gaining clarity with what your intentions are. So my intention was to really go in there and just cultivate more direction with my life. Okay. So the first night, basically a bunch of stuff manifested with my voice. So, I've gotten so accustomed to my self-worth being attached to my physical body. I was a personal trainer, I was jacked, etc. And during the ceremony, basically, Nicki Minaj in my vision was tapping my shoulder and she's like, yo, Jeremy, I want you to come on Instagram Live right now with me for 30 minutes and just share whatever you want with my fans. And I was like, Nicki, like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, I've been watching you. You're super dope. Like, you have a powerful message to share. And I was like, holy shit. Okay. So during the ceremony, I'm literally speaking out loud and just channeling whatever's coming through me. And I wish I had a recording of what I said, because after the ceremony, like 8 or 9 people came up to me individually and they're like, yo, whatever you said really just helped me get through a really challenging moment in my journey. It helped me shift perspective. It helped me just reconnect to my breath. And that really reminded me of how powerful my voice is. And I think a lot of people listening to this can probably relate that we oftentimes have these certain blockages energetically and emotionally. And a very common one is our throat chakra is blocked. Like, so many times we suppress our truth and we don't say what we want to say in the pursuit of being liked by people, fearing the opinions of other people. We stay quiet. And that just triggered me to start my podcast, creating content. Like, that was such a big catalyst in me stepping into my power as a speaker, as a facilitator, as a creator, way beyond just being a personal trainer, right? And then the second night was basically a lot of stuff with my brother. I have one older brother. He's gone through a lot of darkness, and we basically had a non-existing relationship for 15 years, most of my adult life. And I was able to see all of his pain and trauma from a completely different perspective. And it made me have way more kindness and compassion. And immediately after that, I just reached out to him and I'm like, yo, bro, I don't give a shit what happened in the past. Like, we all make mistakes. I just want to be there for you. And I want to create a better, brighter future together. You're my only brother. So long story short, like 6 years later, as we're having this conversation, my brother is actually staying with me in Miami Beach right now. And he's like helping me with aspects of the business. So it's just been like a full circle moment. But what's really cool about these different medicines is, like you mentioned at the beginning, they're a powerful reminder of who you are. And one of the common things you may have experienced on your journey of being a mom, and I know many moms can maybe relate to, is like, as you become a mom, so much of your identity and your time and your energy goes towards raising this other human. And a lot of times you get disconnected from your purpose, from like your passions, from the things that light you up. And these medicines have a beautiful way of reminding you of what those gifts are. It allows you to reconnect to your inner child and do things like that. So I don't even know if I answered your original question. I think I went off on a rant bit, but yeah, I just wanted to provide a little more clarity as to those experiences.
Yeah, I'm so glad you went down that path, because there still is a heaviness and a stigma attached to plant medicine. And I do strongly believe that a lot of that is breaking down and changing. And also, for many, many different reasons, these things have, they come from the earth. They are like the most natural form of medicine that we can possibly find. And also, they're put in this box of, they're not even legal. So a lot of them. And so there is this, strong sense still from a lot of people that they won't go anywhere near it. And so the way that you just beautifully broke that down and described your experience, it's just, it reminds me of like, we're all just human. We're all here on this rock floating in the middle of the universe, like worrying about all of these like small little things and stresses and gossiping about one another and really trying to like tear each other down. But when we connect back to these types of medicines, it's like, well, you can exhale. All of that disappears, and only the love rise to the surface. Like the story that you shared with your brother, like all of the other stuff that you were holding on to and carrying and gripping tightly to, it's like all of that has permission to fall away. And the only thing that matters is like, I want you in my life, and I just want to build a deeper connected relationship with you and lean more into love. And like, that's why I'm so passionate about this stuff, because life can be hard. Like, I don't want to downplay the fact that like a lot of people are struggling, and there are a lot of challenges that we all face, you know, in our day to day. And also there is a different way. There's a different path. And I love also what you said about the throat chakra, because I think everybody can relate to that in some way, where, you know, there's so much fear around not being liked and being exiled or rejected if I speak my truth. And one of my favorite lines that really helped me kind of step fully into like the confidence of using my voice was, if you stand for everything, you stand for nothing. And if you just agree with everything and everyone, and you keep the peace and you play it safe, like that is not who you came here to be. And when you start speaking up, like, of course, there are going to be people that aren't going to like you, but the people that you actually want to attract into your life, that's only possible when you fully stand tall in who you are and who you came here to be. And I really do believe from my own life experience that we need these tools in order to help us get there, because there's way too many distractions around us trying us to disconnect us from who we really are, from food to pharmaceuticals to I mean, you know, the list goes on and on and on. And so I would love to hear, like, talk to me about just when you first started like microdosing, and like, what was that kind of like the next step for you, like slowly after you started like integrating the ceremonies, and was that the next step, or like take me down like that road of like kind of what came after that?
Yeah. So the most important part of any sort of integration work is integration. Like when you come back from a big experience like ayahuasca or any other plant medicine, or even like a meditation retreat, it's all about taking time to process what actually came up for you and integrate those different downloads into your life, right? Because there's so many people that go to different conferences, different workshops, they sit with ayahuasca all these times, but they don't actually change their behavior, which is completely pointless, right? So it's super important just to recognize the work is actually applying these lessons into your life on a day-to-day basis, which I think a lot of people don't do. You know, a lot of people just try to take shortcuts. So implementing microdosing, first off, I think we should probably define what microdosing is, just so everyone's on the same page. Yeah. So microdosing is essentially taking a subperceptual amount of a psychedelic substance. So subperceptual just means that you're not going to be tripping balls. You're not going to be like seeing unicorns or swimming with whales. Like, you're going to be fully present. You're going to be fully conscious, and you're going to be just a little more in flow state, in connected to your day-to-day activities. So your conversations might be a little more present and less distracted. You mentioned So many people are distracted. One of the best things you can do is starve unnecessary distractions and just get into that deep flow state where you're fully immersed in the present moment. Microdosing is a beautiful tool for that. So it's typically 1/10 of a normal dose. So if a normal big mushroom trip is like 3 or 4 grams, 1/10 of that would be 0.3 or 0.4, right? So like 300 milligrams. So we actually use these capsules. I'll send you over some. And there's just 250 milligrams in here. It looks like any other supplement. You can travel with it. It doesn't show up on drug tests, none of that. But the intention with it is to really live life in 4K and appreciate everything around you and be grateful for each moment. And my first time trying microdosing in the middle of 2019, basically my buddy gave me a little stem of a mushroom. He could see that I was like a little anxious before I was about to teach this class. And I took it, and I literally probably within 20 minutes just felt my body relax. I felt like the unnecessary anxiety dissipate, and I was just fully present into the class that I taught. And then after the class, I went on a bike ride by myself on Miami Beach, and I found myself just appreciating like the little things, the birds chirping, the sun shining, like the blades of grass and how green they were. I was just mesmerized by how beautiful this life is and how often I took these simple things for granted on a daily basis. So that's when I really realized, wow, like I want to explore this more. And then I started formulating my own stuff and created a formula that was just really beautiful for tapping into deep levels of flow state, you know, when you're working, and allows you to be more present with your loved ones. And I think that's a big thing I was seeing with my clients was a lot of the men I was working with were high performing entrepreneurs, CEOs, but they sacrificed a lot of wealth and material success for like shitty relationships and other things that just weren't optimal. And one of the most common pieces of feedback that I got from the people I started sharing with initially was just like, yo, this really helps me leave my work at work and be connected with my loved ones and give them my full presence and attention. And I would argue that like being able to be fully present is the greatest skill that you can possess in 2024 in a world where everyone's drowning in distraction. It's the people that can actually silence the noise and really tap into what's in front of them and give that their full focus and attention. Those are the people that are going to win the most. And those are the people that are ultimately going to create the most joy and fulfillment because they're actually taking the time to appreciate what life is giving them, you know? So that's a little bit background. It all started.
I'm so glad you said all of that. And, you know, the thing that's coming up for me the most is when you become a parent, you get to witness your child's level of presence. It is unmatched. Like my daughter is 4.5, and whatever she is doing, she is right there. Even if I ask her a question about like, hey, what did you do this morning? Oftentimes it is like, I don't remember. Like she is that present where, and she'll like get there and she'll tell me about her day, but she is so with me right then and there that none of that matters. The past doesn't matter. The future doesn't matter. She's not looking forward to this future experience that she's about to have. She is right here with you doing whatever that looks like. And it is not easy as an adult, as you said, in 2024, where the world is constantly pulling at our attention, where we're dwelling about the past, or we're thinking about the future, we're planning for the future. And like to have the ability to cultivate like extreme presence the way a child has is the greatest gift. And those are the people like that are so magnetic. Those are the people that, you know, like when somebody gives you their undivided attention and is like actively listening to you, like there's almost no greater feeling than that, because you feel like the most important person in the world. And those are how you create these like very deep, fulfilled relationships in your life. And I love what you said about just appreciating the little things, because I remember when I first started microdosing and it just felt like the saturation was turned way up. Like the volume was turned up. And of course, like I live in Hawaii, so there's beauty, the beauty of nature is everywhere. But even still, you miss it. You're not paying attention. And I would be just infatuated with the smallest thing. Like, "Whoa, look at the clouds right now." And you bring other people along with you. You invite them to drop into that level of presence with you, and gratitude and appreciation for those little moments. And honestly, like that's how you truly enjoy your life. That's how you know, like, yeah, these past few months were like some of the most beautiful moments of my life, because I was so tapped in to the present moment, and I did get to appreciate the beauty that was everywhere. And so, yeah, I'm so glad you shared all of that, because I really think there's still a misconception around, they're still called drugs for so many people. And that, it has such a weighted negative connotation attached to it. But the way that you described your experience, it's so like, who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want to feel more gratitude or more connection or more presence?
Facts. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like the same people that will judge me for microdosing are the same people that are popping antidepressants every day. They're the same people that are excessively drinking on weekends to escape their Monday through Friday life. They're the same people that have been in and out of toxic relationships. So it's just ironic, the people who will criticize something the most are actually the people who probably need it the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, like the whole, my dad was a doctor. He was a neurologist for over 40 years. And, there's people just misunderstand drugs versus medicine, right? In my opinion, medicine is something that actually addresses the root cause of the issue, right? It's not about putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound. It's about actually finding a solution to the problem at hand. That's what medicine is. That's what these different plant medicines and psychedelics and teachers offer you, is the opportunity to actually go deeper within yourself, feel your feelings fully, and become clear with where these certain blockages are.
Mm.
And when you do that, you become limitless, because now you're connected to your intuition. You're reconnected to your truest essence.
Mm.
And the reason why they're still illegal, the reason why mushrooms are illegal, the reasons why ayahuasca is illegal in America, is because the last thing that the government wants is for people to be awake. The last thing the government wants is for people to actually cultivate self-love and self-healing within themselves, because then they won't need to be dependent on drugs. They won't need to be dependent on pharmaceuticals. They won't need to be a slave to all of these outdated systems. Yeah. So it's a very simple reason as to why these things are still criticized and demonized. It becomes very apparent, like when you actually experience them. It's like, holy fuck, like, wow, I can't believe how twisted we have shit. You know what I mean? It's really insane. But I do think there's a lot of positive momentum. I'm an optimist, so yeah. I do think there's a lot of momentum in the right direction. But yeah, it's really about identifying, like, hey, how do you define a drug, right? How do you define a medicine? Because most medicines are actually free. The best medicines are free. It's sunlight, it's real whole food, it's clean drinking water that doesn't have fluoride in it. It is good relationships.
Yeah.
It's good. It's like the things that are actually most important and most medicinal are usually the ones that are easy to access. And if we do that and we just stay connected to ourselves and to nature, we're going to be in a very good position to live a healthy, happy life.
Yes. Yeah. I love that you said all of that. And I think that there is so much fear for a lot of people of going to the depths within themselves because they've never met that version yet. And I'll speak for myself. Like I lived a lot of my life on the surface because I was too afraid of, if I go below, what is going to come up? Am I living a lie? Like what? And ultimately, like there was a huge unraveling of so many parts of my identity. I mean, I was in a 13-year relationship. I moved through separation and divorce over the last couple of years, and like I'm now standing in a place where I feel more free, more in my truth, more in my power than ever before. And also, I have so much empathy and compassion for that past version of me that was so afraid to go to those places, because I think ultimately I knew that my entire life was going to start crumbling around me. And that feels so overwhelming. And for a lot of people, I mean, it's way easier to just keep living a life on the surface than to start, than like the knowing that your whole life might start unraveling around you, and all of the relationships, all of the people that you've, called your close friendships or even family members, they may not like walk with you the whole way home. And that can be so overwhelming and crippling to really take that all in. So I understand if somebody, carries that fear and is so afraid to go there. And also, I just like have to say that the other side is way more beautiful than you can ever imagine. And I honestly can't even fathom like going back to that version of myself, that life that I was living a few years ago, because it wasn't me. It was so fake. And I was wearing so many masks, and I was carrying the weight of all of that on my shoulders. And so I would love to hear, like, because this, you and I are obviously at a level where we've expanded our levels of consciousness. We've gone to the depths of like the darkest places within us. Like we've sat with that part of ourselves. But for the like average human, that's not necessarily the case. And I think, even as I was having some conversations like leading up to chatting with you today and asking, some of the people in my life, like, is there anything you're curious about around like microdosing, and like what comes up when I like start asking about that? And I think like for a lot of people, even like psilocybin is used as more of like I don't want to say like a tool for partying, but like sort of. It's used as like, we're going to eat a little bit of chocolate, like going out tonight instead of drinking. And like that feels much easier than using it as a tool of like deepening your level of consciousness. So like, what would you say to somebody that's like curious and open-minded, has not, cultivated a like microdosing practice within their life, but they're open to the idea? They've done psilocybin, here and there. Maybe they've done like, a mega dose and had a bad experience. And so they have fear around, starting to microdose. Like, what would you say to that person that maybe that's like open to it, but, isn't quite at like the level of awareness that we're at?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say just to really cultivate clarity with where you're at now, and just to ask yourself like, hey, are my relationships where I would like them to be? Is my health where I want it to be? Is my sex life and intimacy where I want it to be? Is my career and level of connection to my passions and purpose where I want to be? And if the answer is no to any of those questions, then that means there's an opportunity to elevate and improve, right? And I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, I'm not addicted to a substance, or I'm not on pharmaceutical drugs. I don't know. Like, I don't see the benefit, right? Like, I don't see the benefit. But it's like, yo, if you actually understand what neuroplasticity is, right? Because that's one of the beautiful things that's happening with psilocybin, is we're literally creating
new neural connections in the brain. We're updating your software. We're updating your brain's capacity to step into new possibilities. And once you understand actually what that means and how that feels, then I think you'll want to explore and dive deeper. But if someone's truly open-minded, you should always just try something as long as it's safe, right? And see what type of experience it is for you. You know, I always get a little disappointed when I see so many people just knock something, whatever it might be, a certain type of diet or a certain type of lifestyle, when you haven't necessarily even tried it yourself. And I just think it's the ultimate way to unlock more potential. And the reason for that is because whenever you take a psychedelic, even as a microdose, you become more aware of yourself.
Yeah.
You become more aware of your thought patterns. There's certain feelings and emotions that you might be suppressing. You become more conscious and aware of how you deal with conflict in certain relationships. You become more aware of your nutrition and how you're nourishing yourself. And once you cultivate that level of self-awareness, you can't undo it, right? So now you have more clarity on the things that are actually aligned with your highest self.
Mm.
And you now have the tools to take action and elevate certain areas. Now, whether you do it or not, that's your decision. But the cool thing about it is, like, microdosing in any psychedelics, really, they're 100% non-addictive. So this isn't something that you have to do for the rest of your life. It's not something that you have to get attached to, like a prescription or something like that, which is really nice and refreshing, right?
Yeah.
Because most people have been programmed to believe that they need to take an SSRI or a certain medication nonstop for the rest of their life. And what happens in that process is you take a medication, maybe you start off on a low dose, but after a month, your body and brain gets accustomed to it. And the doctors are like, yo, Cindy, you gotta double that dose if you want to still feel the effects. So she listens to her doctor, and then she doubles the dose. And then 2 months later, same thing happens. Like, now it's to 60 milligrams if you want to feel the effects. So not only are you pumping your body and brain with more chemicals in that process, but you're becoming addicted and dependent on the substance. And it becomes very hard sometimes to ever wean off of these compounds. So, you know, that is the system that we need to break free from. And I think, like you mentioned, a lot of people can probably relate to the fact that they know some shit might come up, right? Like, oh no, like, what's going to come to the surface if I do this? Now, just to be transparent, like, microdosing won't bring up as many things as if you do like a heroic dose or if you sit with ayahuasca or whatever it is. But it still can amplify your emotions in certain ways. And that can be uncomfortable if you are someone who is used to just numbing things or running away from things. You know, it's a different skill to actually come to realize, okay, this is what's going on and this is what I'm going to do about it, rather than just constantly running away from our shit. Like, you know, it's so empowering when you actually, that's why I love things like just challenging things in general, like the cold plunge, or fucking just doing something weird and uncomfortable, you know, having a conversation with a stranger out of your comfort zone, because you have to reprogram your subconscious to, like, embrace challenging things.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's, I'm sure, like, I'm super excited whenever that journey happens for me to be a dad and a father, but, like, I'm sure there's so many fucking unexpected challenges with that, where it's just like such a beautiful journey of chaos and questioning yourself. But it's like, it's really just asking ourselves the question, like, what type of life do I want to create? And listen, if someone wants to kind of just operate and coast and settle for mediocrity in certain areas, that's okay. Like, the world needs mediocre people too. But I truly believe that everyone was destined to be a little more than that. And is what microdosing, I think, can help you tap into, is just recognizing how much divinity and how much greatness and how much potential you have within yourself.
Yeah, I love how you answered that question, because coming to a plate, like telling somebody, oh, this is your path, or you have to try this, or like, listen to me because I'm way up here on this pedestal and I've overcome and healed so many parts of myself. So like, come along this ride with me, just isn't the way. It really is like asking somebody in your life, like, you know, maybe you have a friend or a family member that you like would benefit from incorporating microdosing in their life, but you just don't know how to go about it, or the ways in which you've tried have not worked. Because if you're telling somebody what to do, it's ultimately going to push them further away. And so approaching it through the lens of curiosity really is the best approach. And I would argue that somebody that is on antidepressants, or maybe not even pharmaceuticals, but like they're regularly drinking alcohol and they're just, you know, living a life and they're content. But I would argue that most of those people are not truly fulfilled. And like asking that question, exactly as you said, like, how are your relationships? How is your health? Like, do you feel like you're thriving right now? And 9 times out of 10, I would imagine that the answer would be no. And I agree with you like fully that we didn't come here to live a mediocre life. You know, as far as I know, this is the one and only shot we've got. And I want to explore myself as much as I can. And I want to deepen my relationships as much as I can. And so if that is also you, like, why not give it a shot? And like see where it goes and see how you feel and try it out. And there is no real risk attached to it. Like, I also love that you said that it's not addictive. Like, I've gone in and out of microdosing, taking breaks here and there, and there have been no challenging moments. It's not like I'm like, oh my gosh, I need my capsule today. Like, that thought doesn't even cross my mind once, versus the opposite of like, if you're so accustomed to having a drink every Friday evening, like, that's a difficult habit to break. It's not easy. Caffeine, even, that's a difficult habit to break. And so I would love kind of like more of the like logistical pieces of like, what do you recommend as far as like frequency, and also like for somebody to feel the effects and the benefits? Like, I know for myself, like I felt them pretty instantly. Like, honestly, the first, like definitely after like a few days, but after like day one, I felt like, oh, I'm more connected to myself. I'm like living and operating from more of like a heart-centered place. But I would also love to hear just from your own experience, like just your thoughts on like taking breaks and frequency and how long it takes to kind of feel those like benefits.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a very specific protocol that is basically Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings are the days that we take the medicine. And I showed you before, but it's just a normal capsule.
Yeah.
250 milligrams of psilocybin, 200 milligrams of lion's mane, 200 milligrams of cordyceps, and then 50 milligrams of beetroot powder to just increase nitric oxide and blood flow. And you know, when I was creating this formula, it was really for the high performer, like the person who wants to tap into more focus, who wants to tap into more flow state, and who also wants to perform better in other areas of life, like the gym, the bedroom, which is why we put beetroot powder in there to increase blood flow and nitric oxide. And yeah, it is pretty cool how quickly someone can see and experience the benefits of microdosing. I don't like to set expectations like, hey, in your first week, you're going to feel this, your second week. It's different for everyone, right? It depends really just where you're at in your journey and like what medications you might be taking, what your nutrition and sleep is like. You know, that's why I always suggest we created like this super cool monthly membership where people can literally go month to month with no long-term commitment. Try it for a couple $100 a month, get also like coaching and support with our team by me and like amazing content to also support them. So they're not doing it on their own, because the truth is microdosing is not a magic pill. If you are sleeping like shit, if you're eating like shit, if you don't have any ways to regulate stress, if you're never connecting to your breath, if you're always in that fight or flight state, microdosing isn't going to really benefit you by itself. We need to implement these other tools and strategies so you can become more optimal and you can actually feel the medicine, you know? And that's really what we teach. So I always tell people, like, give it 30 days. You're probably going to see some level of improvement in some area of your life.
Yeah.
You know? And I do think people should commit to like a 3-month journey, just because we didn't get to where we are. You're 35?
37.
37. And I just turned 34 yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, we didn't get to, like, someone listening right now, if you're 27, 37, 47, you didn't get to where you are overnight. It was years of compounded thought patterns, beliefs, habits, actions, behaviors. And when people come in and they're like expecting for everything to be magically healed and improved after 30 days, I'm like, listen, I just want to be realistic with the expectations. You're going to see improvements, but if you really want to commit to like long-term transformation, give it 3 months. Like, give it 3 months and you'll create massive momentum. And that's not really that long of a time period if you think about it. But a lot of times, again, people are just looking for that quick fix. Like, they don't want to be told that they have to do these other things, right? But what's cool about that is a lot of times the medicine tells you exactly what you need, you know?
Yeah.
For example, like I've just heard so many stories from clients and students where they're like uncertain about this relationship they're in. And I'm like, listen, take the medicine, give yourself time and space to process, journal, breathe, and just see what comes up. I promise you'll get some answers. And they'll come back like the next day or 3 days later, and they're like, oh my gosh, like, I realized that I was actually the toxic one in the relationship. I was, reverting back to all of these patterns based on these certain triggers and insecurities I have. And I'm like, all right, cool. We created clarity. Or someone will realize, like, oh shit, I realized that I'm using food as an escape when I get emotional, and I'm eating all this sugar and it's causing all this inflammation, and then it's fucking with my confidence and self-esteem, right? And I didn't say anything. They literally discovered all of this through the medicine. And that's why I always just say, like, listen, the medicine is going to give you exactly what you need, which isn't always what you want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's cool when you kind of build that level of connection with yourself. Yeah, it's really dope, because then we become our own healers and our own health coaches,
Yes, I love that you said that, because the answers are always within us. Always. Every single time. And we've been taught, though, that the answers are out there. I'll be happy when. Or, back to that, like, magic pill, the quick fix. Like, we've been so conditioned. It is so normal for any time we are feeling any sort of disconnect or out of balance, out of alignment, to go to a doctor. And I feel very fortunate where I was raised outside of the system, and like my parents were total outliers. And, so I had that foundation from day one, and a distrust in the pharmaceutical industry, in the government, like in all of that. So, I'm like standing from a very different place than most people, because we're not taught to look within. We're taught to, like, go read a book, or go ask Google, or go ask your doctor. And your doctor, because I have, as an adult here and there, like, gone to see a doctor and been so extremely disappointed with the like just relationship that I received, where it's so clear to me, because they're not, I mean, maybe some of them today are asking those questions, but most of them are not asking, what does your sleep cycles look like? What are you eating? How are you moving your body? Are you getting sunlight on your skin in the morning? You know, like, what are you breathing? Do you have any sort of like spiritual practice, or, you know, what, you know, they're not asking what that like 360 picture looks like. They're just asking what your symptoms are, and they're prescribing a pill for it. And as you said, like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, like that's not the answer. And sometimes it takes time. You're not going to get there, you know, overnight. It is, sometimes it's slow. And I think because we're so used to this like quick fix, or that like quick hit of dopamine, that's what we expect. But the like real benefits, the real like healing, that stuff takes time. And I love that you brought up just the compound of like our lifetime. Like it took, you know, for you 34 years, for me 37 years to get to the place that I'm in today. And to expect that you're going to like receive all of these downloads like day one or day two is extremely unrealistic. And so, yeah, there's so many, like, there's so much beauty in slowing it down and like really taking time to get curious with yourself and ask yourself, like, what needs to come up? What's next for me? And like going from there. And I would love to hear from your own experience, just some of like the shifts that you saw in your own life. Like, I feel like I know some of them because I've consumed like a ton of your content, but for somebody that's listening, like that just, you know, wants, that they are curious, they, you know, are like, you know, potentially going to start a microdosing practice. Like, what are some of the things that somebody could expect? Like, what are some of like your personal stories of like the shifts that you saw within your own life?
Wow. I mean, like, listen, with my own life, like I said, I was doing well in certain areas, but also struggling in others, just like in terms of having deep, intimate connections with my friends, and just kind of being able to open up in that way and feel safe to do so. So things regarding that, like really starving a lot of like, you know, living in Miami Beach, you can fall a victim to a lot of distractions. And for me, I think one of the greatest things microdosing helped me cultivate is clarity with my purpose and my vision and my mission. And once you have that, which I think is really something that a lot of people are craving and they're missing in their life, because when you actually have that level of fulfillment, right, and that level of purpose where it's like, yo, I'm waking up each morning with a certain level of clarity and a certain level of direction, a certain level of energy, because it's like, yes, I get to help people today. I get to help myself and expand myself today, right? And I think that's one of the other really great gifts that it can offer, is just clarity with purpose. So many different insane transformations that I've witnessed, and people can like, we'll link to my site in the show notes, and people can kind of see some of the crazy testimonials. I mean, I've worked with a lot of, you know, well-known people, some of which I'm not really able to share, you know, their testimonials, but on there you'll see we have, you know, actors, actresses, we have pro athletes, we have 7-figure entrepreneurs. And on the outside, all of these people were doing well, right? Like they were successful externally, but a lot of them still felt this void internally. And I feel like a lot of that void stems from a lack of unconditional love for ourselves. And especially when you gain success, accolades, followers for doing something, a lot of your validation and self-worth comes from that thing, right? So if you're a great athlete, it's going to be for being a great athlete. If you're super beautiful and attractive, it's going to be, a lot of your validation is going to be coming from your physical. And we can forget that we're much more than those titles and those identities. So microdosing is one of those things that allows you to just like reconnect to who you are. And I think you work with a lot of moms, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important for the moms as well. And we have so many moms who are microdosing with us. It's absolutely incredible. I literally wanted to start like almost a separate microdosing mastermind community just for moms. And I still might, but like, it's amazing because like I mentioned earlier, you know, a lot of times once you become a mom, you know, your identity shifts a lot. Your priorities shift a lot. And oftentimes you can forget to fill up your cup. And you're constantly like to your partner's cup, you're pouring into your kid's cup. And it's easy to forget about your purpose, your passions, your health, your well-being. So I think for a majority of moms that have joined our community, I've just seen them cultivate self-love, and they no longer feel guilty for prioritizing themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad you brought moms through because, yeah, that was my experience. And also like living a life somewhat up here on the surface, adding a child onto that, the to-do list is never ending. And even for myself, like I've always prioritized my own health, but that was just the external, like, because that I received, as you said, I received validation for that. So like moving my body, eating healthy was always up here. So that never, like, I never lost that, but I just got swept up in, okay, I'm going to check all these boxes. I'm going to keep doing, I'm going to do all day long. And then at the end of the day, when I lay my head down on my pillow, why do I feel so unfulfilled, disconnected, and not happy? Because I wasn't truly filling my own cup. I was living for everybody else. I was doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to do, and I completely lost my sense of purpose. And don't get me wrong, for a lot of women, being a mother is their like deepest sense of purpose, and they receive a ton of fulfillment from that. And also, I would argue though that there is something beneath that is like asking you to pay attention to it, but you just may be like overdoing yourself. You're so distracted from everything else that you don't have the time and space to even allow that to be a thought within of like, is there anything beyond this that I want to, you know, pour any sort of attention to? Because we're our own individual human beings. And also when we have children, we're teaching our children how to show up, act, and behave in the world. And if we're constantly doing for everybody else, our children are taking that on within themselves as well. And they're going to grow up thinking that like that's normal. And so how can we, like, this idea that it's like selfish to put yourself first as a mom, like I reject that fully, because I know when I put myself first, like, yes, of course, there's a time and place. Like if your child like has their needs that need to be met, you have to, you know, put that, like that needs to be number one. But outside of that, when you're filling your own cup, when you really feel that sense of fulfillment and purpose, like I am such a better mom when my cup is full. I am way more present with her. I want to get down on the floor and play whatever like make-believe game that she wants me to play with her, because I have, you know, lived throughout my day feeling very fulfilled. And so I'm able to drop in with her. But when you are so disconnected from like the things within yourself, and then your child is like constantly tugging at your attention, you're not fully there. You are really disconnected from that moment. And so, yeah, there's so many benefits, and I'm so glad that you shared all of the things within your own life that you've seen and within like, you know, the people that you work with too. And I do, as sort of like one like last question, because this has come up like a bunch, because I know how many people like we really have normalized taking a prescription drug or just taking some form of like an antidepressant as a means for you know, feeling more alive, feeling more themselves, getting through the day. And I just, I have, it's challenging for me to have conversations with somebody that is like really wrapped up that like that's the only way. So for somebody that's, you know, been on antidepressants for a really, really long time, and there's like a ton of fear around making any sort of change there, like, and I would imagine you've probably worked with a lot of people that have transitioned away from pharmaceuticals. Like, how do you approach that conversation? And like, what is the best, like, kind of first step there?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I never tried to force anyone to do anything. I always will just meet anyone with where they're at. And yeah, some people are just in a place where they don't truly want to change. And that could be really frustrating if it's a loved one, your mom, dad, your brother, your sister, where it's like, yo, I have this thing and I know it would be so powerful and helpful and beneficial for them, but they're just so close-minded, right? It's a tough situation, but in my experience, I've learned like you have to kind of meet the people with where they're at. And you gotta, for me, in my experience, because my dad, like coming from a medical background, when he was still practicing, and like he didn't want to even, I came back from doing ayahuasca, he didn't really want to like hear about it. And, you know, when I started pursuing like these other things, like he supported me, but like he didn't really want to like go into the details. But as soon as my dad retired right before COVID, I started just sharing research with him. I was sharing research about psilocybin. I was sharing, you know, stories, powerful stories of my clients, powerful stories of other people. And I know my dad's like a data science guy, so I spoke his language, right? And that forced my dad to kind of just be like, all right, this is worth learning more about. And then, you know, 2 years later, he okayed my mom taking microdoses at age like 75. So sometimes just have to go through that process. But I always just like to ask, like, yo, is what you're doing right now working? And I would argue that I don't think I have ever met anyone who is taking antidepressants that's also happy and joyful. And that's the whole point of these medications. They completely dim your light and they completely numb your emotions. So yes, you might feel less sad in the moment, but you're also going to feel less joy, less gratitude, less appreciation for life. Because the truth is, if you want to actually experience pleasure, you have to experience pain. Like there's the light and dark, there's the contrast in which we live in, that there's a spectrum of emotions. So if you're dimming one side of that spectrum, you're also inherently dimming the other side, which is just going to have you in this very boring space of just living and surviving without actually experiencing life. And life is happening to you. You're not actually creating life. You're just in the passenger seat, watching life move past you. And that's kind of a shitty way to live. But at the end of the day, I've learned, because I've tried doing it the other way, where I'm like, hey, you should stop eating this and you should start doing this. And most people just don't respond well to that.
Yeah.
Especially loved ones and relatives. So honestly, you can show people stories, show people success stories, show people testimonials, show them data, show them research, show them things that make it like so clear that if they continue on the path they're going on, like they're essentially just choosing to suffer.
Yeah.
And again, like I can just tell you on the personal story of my brother, there's so many times I wanted to help him, but like he wasn't ready to receive the help. Right. So it was painful for me because the only thing I cared about was helping him. And at the same time, it wasn't going anywhere with that approach. So I had to step back and kind of just recalibrate. But
he came around and he was like, yo, I'm ready. Like, let's go. So, yeah, it's a tough balance between like patience and also kindness and like communicating messages in a way that people don't feel attacked and they feel like you actually care about them and you have their best interests in mind.
Yeah. I mean, so much of what you said, it like, that's such a powerful message. Like meeting somebody where they're at really is the only way through, and approaching it again from like a curious place, because that's where the walls drop. That's where someone can feel safe to show up exactly as they are, where you're not judging them. You're not telling them what to do. I can't even tell you the number of times somebody tried to tell me what to do in my life, and it ended up being the ultimate like distancer in our relationship, because somebody, as you said, they have to get there on their own timeline. And sometimes that takes a rock bottom moment or some big like external shakedown in order for like the path to become clear of like, okay, now I cannot continue down this road any longer. I'm ready now. And I hear you, and you feel safe. And so I'm going to come to you first. Like, that's how you allow change in. And also like the highs and the lows, like it literally is a requirement. If you are living in this like just mediocre baseline of somewhat numbness, yeah, you may not be feeling like the lowest of lows and sadness and grief, but exactly as you said, you're not feeling the highest level of joy either. And that's the place that like, it's taken time for me to get here, but I look at sadness and even heartbreak or grief as like, there's so much beauty in that, because I know, yes, maybe I am in the depths of this like uncomfortable, hard emotion right now. And I also know that I have to be able to feel this in order to feel the opposite end of that extreme, which is like the highest highs, which is seeing the beauty in like a rainbow or a sunset, or sipping coffee in the morning, or, whatever the like actual thing is. And that is how you ultimately like live this extremely fulfilled life, because our life really is just a bunch of moments, small little moments added up over time. They're not always these like big monumental, like, parties where we feel super, super high. It's like, it's the compound of all of those little moments. And if you can really drop in and embrace whatever that is, even if it is an uncomfortable feeling in that moment, like, yeah, the buildup of all of that over time is such a beautiful life. And it's one that I certainly want to live. So yeah, I could talk to you about this forever, all day. But I feel like this is a good place to kind of finish it off. And so please like share with me, like, where can people find you? What are you working on? What's coming up? Like, where can people connect with you? Anything that you would like to share within that?
Yeah, I'm really grateful we had this conversation too. It's been fun. And I can't wait for round 2, either Miami Beach or Hawaii.
Me too.
We'll see. I've never been to Hawaii, by the way.
What? Never?
Yeah, I've been to like 44 states, and all my friends would go to, because I grew up in the Bay Area, so like Hawaii wasn't that far. Everyone went during like winter vacation. I don't know. My parents we never went there. They've been, but like I've never been. So I'm going to have to find time like in 2025 to definitely make that happen.
Yes, please. I love that you're already putting that out there. And I understand, like, because I have family on the East Coast, and a lot of people vacation to like the Caribbean, or, some of those more like Mexico, some of those like tropical places. So I get it. You either like have been to Hawaii a bunch or like have never experienced it. It's just such a special, unique, beautiful place, because while it is part of, we have all of the luxuries of America, and also it really does feel like a different country here because we have our own language, we have our own culture, we like, and you know, lots of states do, but it is so strong here. Like Hawaii really does vibrate at a different frequency, and that is very, very felt. So someone like yourself that is so deeply connected to energy and tapped into all of that, like you will really, really love this place.
Yeah, that sounds super dope. Yeah, definitely have to host a mushroom experience there in 2025. Anyways, people can follow me on IG at jeremy.awakens. And I think what we should do, Diera, is we should actually create a special offer for your community that basically we talk about it offline, but it'll probably just be at checkout for like the monthly membership if they want to try 1 month, right? And it'll be like get to save something from it, and they'll just type in your name like Diera at checkout. So we'll create that, and then we'll include the link in the show notes. There's like literally exactly 3 months left in 2024. So it's a beautiful opportunity to just cultivate massive fucking momentum in every single area of your life before 2025 starts. So that's really what I would just encourage people to do is like, give it a shot. You know, hopefully after listening to Diera's story, my story, and kind of what we shared super authentically, you know, at least you just want to be more curious and do more research and homework on the subject matter. And then if you feel called, we'd love to be on that journey with you. So yeah, we'll link to all of the things, but it's just microdosingmastermind.com, and they can find everything there. And then yeah, hit Diera up in the DMs, hit me up in the DMs, and let us know what you liked most about this podcast.
Yes, I love that. You and I seem so similar in this sense. Like I love having real life human interaction, and that can be online. Like I love having those types of conversations with people. So absolutely, please send either of us a DM. I will include our special offer in the show notes so that can all be found there as well. And Jeremy, you're just such a lighthouse and a gem of a human. And I felt that from like the very first moment that I found you on Instagram. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for doing this with me, and like more coming soon for sure.
Oh yeah. Much love, everybody.